Greetings to everyone. Welcome to another video where we share inspiring stories of faith, transformation, and love. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you're watching us from. Could you write it in the comments? It's always wonderful to see how far this message reaches. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, take this opportunity to subscribe now and activate the notification bell. That way you won't miss any of the stories we're going to share today. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and join me on this journey of reflection and transformation. Let's get started. I never imagined that my life would change so drastically. On a seemingly ordinary Sunday, I was at church as usual, sitting in my favorite pew in the center of the sanctuary, where the hymns seemed to bring heaven closer to earth. The sermon that morning was about tithing, a topic I had heard countless times. "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse," proclaimed the pastor, quoting Malachi 3:10. These words always stirred a mix of guilt and duty within me, feelings that accompanied me on such occasions. I was strict about paying my tithe. Even when it affected my finances, I believed it was necessary to secure my blessings. I attended church faithfully, helped in the community, and tried to treat people with kindness. But deep down, I recognized that my relationship with God was transactional, a checklist of spiritual tasks I needed to fulfill. Among them all, tithing was my greatest achievement. I gave my 10% religiously, believing it would guarantee my entry into heaven, until the day came that shattered all my certainties about life, death, and God. It was an ordinary afternoon, and I was heading home after running some errands when it happened. A truck ran a red light and collided with my car with tremendous force. I didn't have time to hear the screeching tires or the glass shattering before everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the car, but in a place of infinite light, a presence that radiated warmth and peace, like a comforting embrace. Yet at the same time, I felt completely exposed, as if every secret of my soul was laid bare. Then I heard Jesus. His presence was so majestic that words failed to describe it. He radiated love and authority in a way that was both overwhelming and welcoming. I needed no introductions. I knew immediately who he was. My legs gave way, and I fell to my knees before him, trembling. I wanted to speak, to explain myself, but the words simply wouldn't come out. Jesus looked at me with eyes that pierced every layer of my being. I felt loved, yet deeply unworthy. He gently asked me, "Do you know why you are here?" His voice was like a melody that also carried authority. I couldn't respond. Before I could stammer something, he said, "Let me show you." In an instant, my entire life flashed before me like a living movie. Every moment, every decision, every thought was revealed. I saw the times I was kind, but also those when I ignored people in need simply for convenience. I realized the pride I took in my acts of service, not because they glorified God, but because they made me feel superior. Even the tithe, of which I was so proud, was exposed as an empty ritual, performed out of obligation and not out of love or sincere faith. "You misunderstood," said Jesus firmly but without condemnation. "The tithe is not about money. It's about trust. It's a matter of the heart." These words broke something inside me. Tears streamed down my face as I realized how far I was from truly knowing him. "You have received much, but you have withheld even more," he continued. "Now, I will show you what you have missed." Before I could ask questions, the light around me changed. Oh! Suddenly, I was transported to a place of indescribable beauty. Colors I had never seen danced in the sky, and the air seemed to vibrate with a celestial melody. I saw people with faces radiant with joy and peace, worshiping together in perfect harmony. There was no pain, no sorrow, no separation, only love, belonging, and an overwhelming peace. Jesus was again by my side, and his expression was full of tenderness. "This is what I desire for all my children," he said. "But not everyone understands what it means to live for me. They focus on rituals and rules, but their hearts are distant. As he spoke, images of people I had encountered appeared before me. Some were faithful servants whose lives were marked by humility and love. Others, like me, focused on outward appearances while neglecting the deeper call to fully surrender their hearts to God. It was painful to acknowledge that I was part of this second group, but the truth was undeniable. "It's not what you give," said Jesus, "it's how you live." True worship is a life poured out in love and obedience. Suddenly, everything changed again. Now, I found myself in a place of absolute despair. The light and joy of heaven were replaced by a suffocating darkness. Screams and lamentations echoed around me, filled with regret and suffering. I saw shadowy figures, trapped in torment. The air seemed heavy, laden with selfishness, pride, and a lack of repentance. "This is what it means to live away from me," said Jesus with sadness in his voice. "When you withhold your heart, when you live only for yourself, this is the fruit of your choice." I wanted to look away, to escape that scene of pain, but Jesus held my gaze. He wasn't showing me this to punish me, but to awaken me, so I could understand the depth and reality of the choices I made. While surrounded by a bright light, I heard a powerful voice, full of authority and love. "You cannot serve two masters." These words broke the silence, striking deep within my being. I realized the weight of my selfishness, my distorted priorities, my pride, and my constant need to control. All these things had prevented me from fully surrendering to him. I was blind to the true cost of my faith, but in the midst of my confusion, a new hope emerged. Jesus' voice pierced the darkness like a beam of light. "Do you have a new chance?" With these words, I returned to the light. Jesus stood before me, extending his hand. "I give you a choice," he said tenderly. "You can return to your life and live it for me, or continue as you are and miss the fullness of what I have prepared for you." The weight of this offer was overwhelming. I knew I didn't deserve a new chance, but his love for me was undeniable. I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face. "Lord, I choose you," I whispered, my heart overflowing with humility. "I no longer want to live for myself. Teach me to live for you, Jesus." He smiled, his expression full of joy and compassion. "Go and tell others what you have seen," he said. "Help them understand that I desire their hearts, not the ritual. Remind them that true worship is a life surrendered in love." These words resonated deeply in my heart. Suddenly, the light around me intensified, and I felt as if I were being pulled back into my body. I woke up in the hospital, my body aching but alive. The doctors were surprised by my recovery, calling it a miracle. However, I knew that the true miracle had happened in my soul. In the days that followed, I struggled to find words to describe what I had experienced. The experience was so transformative that it seemed impossible to sum up in a simple sentence. But I knew that Jesus had given me a mission, to share this message, no matter how difficult it was. Years have passed since that encounter with Jesus. At first, the change seemed overwhelming, and I struggled to integrate what I had learned into my daily life. My religious community viewed tithing as a sacred ritual, a symbol of righteousness. But now, I understood that tithing was not a matter of money or percentage. As I studied the scriptures and spent hours in prayer, I began to grasp the depth of what Jesus had taught me. Tithing was never a formula to attract blessings or secure divine favor. It was always an expression of trust, a reflection of our surrender to God. It wasn't about perfection, but about a heart willing to surrender. The pressure to meet religious standards began to dissipate. I understood that God didn't want a perfect offering. He wanted a true relationship with me, even in my imperfection. He wanted me to trust him completely, knowing that he would provide for all my needs. This revelation transformed my approach, not just to tithing, but to life in general. I learned that true worship doesn't reside in rituals, but in a life lived in love, humility, and obedience. Today, I share this story in the hope that others will also find freedom and transformation. Jesus doesn't seek our performances but our heart. And when we surrender everything to Him, we discover the true fullness that only He can offer. For the first time, I was free to give, not out of fear of consequences, but out of a sincere desire to honor God. It wasn't just about money. My surrender included my time, my energy, my thoughts, my words, and my actions. The act of giving became an expression of trust and love, not an obligation. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It was progressive, almost imperceptible at first, but deeply significant. My interactions with my church, my community, and my family began to change. I started giving differently, no longer limited to a percentage of my income just because it was expected. Instead, I gave authentically, guided by the heart. I donated to people going through hardships. I contributed to causes that touched my soul. I gave to demonstrate the same love and compassion that God showed me. The act of giving became a practical manifestation of the transformation occurring within me. And as my heart changed, I began to see changes in the world around me. My perspective on tithing gained new dimensions. I saw clearly how this concept had been distorted, in many places, reduced to a tradition or an appearance of religiosity. Many people, as I once was, were trapped in a mechanical cycle of giving without understanding, acting without purpose, trying to appease God with acts devoid of true connection with Him. I remember one particular Sunday. I was sitting in church, listening to a sermon about tithing. The pastor emphasized the importance of giving and the blessings it would bring. It was the same message I had heard so many times, but this time, something inside me rebelled. I wanted to stand up and say, it's not about money. It's about heart, about love. However, I realized that the congregation wasn't ready to hear that. So I remained silent, reflecting on how much I had evolved. I knew I could no longer participate in this empty cycle, but I also understood that not everyone was ready for the truth I had found. It was a painful realization. Feeling like a stranger in a place I had called home wasn't easy, but I understood that my path was unique, just like everyone's. God showed me this truth for a reason, and that reason wasn't just for me. My mission was to share what I had learned with patience and love with others. I began to see that true generosity isn't measured by numbers or rituals, but by the heart's willingness to surrender to God and others. Over time, I started sharing my story with people I trusted. At first, the reactions were skeptical. Many resisted what I was saying, and I didn't blame them. I had also been in their place. I believed that tithing was a transaction, a way to secure God's favor, and lived according to that belief. But now that I saw the flaws in that thinking, I could no longer remain silent. Little by little, one person after another, people began to listen to me. At first, it was just close friends, but as I shared more, I saw hearts transforming. They began to realize that the truth didn't lie in the amount we gave, but in the surrender of our hearts to God. The act of giving became motivated by love, not fear. And when they understood this, their gifts changed too. It wasn't just a financial change, but a spiritual awakening. I saw people starting to give with joy, without hesitation, and finding peace in their generosity. It was no longer just about money. It was about offering their hearts to God. For the first time, I deeply understood what Jesus meant when He said that the kingdom of God is in the heart. It wasn't about outward appearances, but an internal transformation. With this conviction, I began sharing my experience with larger groups. I spoke about my journey of encountering Jesus and the impact it had on my understanding of tithing. Not everyone was ready to listen. Some welcomed my words with open hearts, while others rejected the message. However, this didn't shake me. I knew I needed to speak the truth, even when it wasn't popular or easy to accept. One day, I was invited to speak at a church event on the theme of generosity. I realized it was an opportunity to share everything I'd learned about tithing. I was nervous, fearing people's reactions, but as I stepped onto the stage, I felt a peace that surpassed all understanding. I spoke about the heart of giving, explaining that tithing wasn't simply a financial transaction, but a reflection of our love for God and others. As I spoke, I could see understanding in the eyes of many participants. They began to realize that giving wasn't about getting something in return, but about living a life of generosity that reflected God's love and grace. I shared how Jesus taught me that tithing goes beyond money. It's an expression of trust and surrender, a gift of our time, our attention, and our love, both for the people around us and for God Himself. When I finished, several people approached me to express their gratitude. They spoke about how this new perspective had changed their understanding. At that moment, I realized that my message made a difference. But more than that, I knew it was just the beginning of something greater, a call to continue spreading the truth about what it means to live with a generous heart. The truth was spreading, a heart with faith. Now, looking back, I see the path I've traveled. The journey was difficult, and I know it's far from over, but one thing is certain. I am no longer the person I was before. Today, I don't give because I feel obligated. I give because I want to, because my heart has been transformed by God's love. This transformation is a reflection of what Jesus revealed to me years ago when He spoke to my heart. Tithing is not what you think, it's much more. I learned that tithing isn't limited to a financial obligation. It's about surrendering everything to God, not out of duty but out of love. When we give wholeheartedly, we express the true essence of Christ's love. It's the purest and most authentic form of worship, a heart surrendered, guided by grace and the desire to reflect the love we receive from God. The truth set me free. And I know it can also set others free because, in the end, it doesn't matter how much we give, but how we give what we have with sincerity, love, and gratitude. And in that surrender we find the freedom that only God's truth can offer. So, what did you think of this story? I hope it touched your heart as much as it touched mine. If this message made sense to you, don't forget to like and share this video with someone who also needs it. Together, let's spread this inspiration. Oh, and before you go, tell me in the comments which moment impacted you the most. I'm looking forward to reading your responses and replying. Next show. Last but not least, if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any incredible stories like this one. Thank you so much for watching until the end. May God bless your life, and may you continue to spread love and faith wherever you go. Until the next video.